Welcome to the Painting of the Week podcast, where we look at some of the most significant paintings throughout history. Introducing your hosts, Phil Grabsky and Laura Bentham.
Welcome to season 4 of Painting of the Week with me, Phil Grabsky, and Laura Bentham.
Yeah.
You can see today's painting either via the website or on the YouTube channel. And we're starting with a gorgeous painting today, Rain, Steam, Speed by Turner. And the particular reason why we've chosen this one is that we are deep into the editing of a film called My National Gallery, London. We've added the London because we might well do My National Gallery, Washington, DC, or somewhere else in the future.
I hope so, Phil.
And I'd love to, actually, Washington, DC, the gallery there is unbelievable. Anyway.
Okay, well, you never know.
So, now, My National Gallery, London, for those of you listening to this before June 2024, is coming out then to mark the 200th anniversary of the gallery, and is a rather super little film which is both a history of the National Gallery, the 7 short inserts that tell you about why the National Gallery is in Trafalgar Square, or what is a National Gallery, or how the collection was amassed, how the collection is hung, these kind of things. But also, and more specifically, it's got about, we're not quite sure at this point, but 18 or 20 people, mainly staff of all types, telling us their favourite painting and why. And the stories are not only kind of fabulous stories in themselves and emotional and gripping, but the main key to all the stories is that it gives you an additional insight into the painting, and we hope a desire to go and look at the painting for yourself. We have sprinkled a little bit of celebrity stardust over the film, and one of those celebs is somebody that I've worked with before. I did a film called Tim Marlowe Meets Michael Palin. And I have watched I've watched many of Michael's films, but I've seen the documentaries he's made on art. For example, a very fine film about the Danish painter Hammershøi. But I know that Michael is a great fan of art and a great fan of the National Gallery. And we asked him to talk about, in the film, his favourite painting. And he chose this painting by Turner, Rain, Steam, Speed. And it's a fabulous little 5-minute piece. It's worth going to see the film in the cinemas just for Michael Palin. And I've looked at this painting many, many times, and there's a couple of things, actually, I've got to be honest, that he pointed out that I'd not noticed before. It is absolutely one of those paintings that the more you look, the more you see. It's absolutely brilliant.
Oh.
So.
That's nice, isn't it?
Laura.
Yes.
I'm absolutely delighted that in the last few weeks your multicoloured pens did not dry up.
Well, actually, I did get some new ones.
Oh, well done.
Because we've had 60 podcasts, so...
The pens are running out.
Yeah. I've done the 100 pack from W.H. Smith's now. I've moved on.
Brilliant.
I'm still looking for some new ones, as always. But yeah, so Michael Palin.
Well, no.
And this painting. But this painting...
Yeah, tell me about
Don't you feel like the last... I mean, I know we don't want to go too specific, but the weather recently, I feel like I'm in the middle of that.
Oh, yeah.
The middle bit especially. I feel like I've been in a cloud for 3 days.
Yeah, we've definitely got the rain.
Indeed. But, okay. As a novice, always wasn't... I'd never really looked at it, as always. I absolutely love it.
Brilliant, isn't it?
Mm.
So
I absolutely love it.
What are we seeing? For those, let's describe what
yes,
we've got here.
in case someone's running.
Well, that's how I listen to most of my podcasts.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so for all my friends who are out there training, and I've browbeaten them into listening to my podcast.
Oh, that's nice.
I don't know how many do, but okay, describe the painting to them.
Okay. Oh, that's really tough. Well, there's the main part, because I know you're always, and apparently this one has not got a lot of perspective, which is quite interesting, but the main part of this painting is there's a train coming out towards you, towards the bottom right-hand corner. And the middle of the painting, which fascinates me, because no one would normally do this, I don't think, is just this whole swirl of what looks like a cloud, but it probably isn't. It's steam. It's a mixture of everything. But there's actually, and to the left, there's a sort of a viaduct. But when you actually looked at it initially, there's not a lot of detail. He's kind of just sort of, a lot of people would think, no, I'm not so sure about this. There's not a lot of detail to it. But then when you start looking, it's all the little mysteries, the little things he wants to teach us.
See, I'm not sure about that idea that there's not a lot of perspective here. Because what strikes me is that if you look, I mean, the painting is divided in half. And I think if you want to, you can see a horizon line. And, are those clouds or are those hills? Part of this reminds me of being on Devil's Dyke in, north of where we are in Brighton, and looking down into the Weald, down towards London, 40, 50 miles away.
Yeah.
So on the right-hand side of the bridge, on the left-hand side, that could be hills, that could be the downs. I mean, he's probably, I would imagine, I've always assumed he's painted this in the West Country. I've got no real reason to know whether he did or didn't. He might have been, Turner loved to travel, loved to sketch. We know he went to places like the Lake District. And he travelled throughout Britain and Europe.
Well, I looked it up.
Ah.
And it was the Maidenhead Railway Bridge.
Ah.
And it is apparently going across the Thames, coming in towards London. And designed by Isambard Kingdom Brunel.
Okay.
It's like my favourite name
Excellent.
ever.
So that would be a road bridge. That reminds you a bit of the older of the bridges over Richmond, over the Thames in Richmond. And I think that bridge on the left, the road bridge, where you would go across on your horse and cart, I think that's not only that does have perspective, because it's also leading to the same central dot that the bridge is coming from. But I think actually it holds the painting together, because without that, everything's flat except this one bridge. So that viaduct's actually really important, isn't it? Anyway, but you're absolutely right. If you just scan it rather quickly, it just feels like a lot of,
steam.
A lot of steam, a lot of rain. It's all kind of smudged.
Exactly.
Actually, when you start looking... Anyway, you were saying, carry on.
Well, no, it was just that he's okay. So at school, at last, it was something I did do, was the Industrial Revolution. So when I started looking at this painting and I realised it was the Industrial Revolution, I was like, okay, we did this in history. At last, there was something I did. And towards the end of the Industrial Revolution was all the trains. That was the main thing. And then, as always, with these paintings, which you've taught me now, Phil, there's all these details, all these things he's trying to tell us. So, with Turner, he's saying, possibly when he was born, it wasn't the trains and everything, but it is now towards the future. The train is coming at us. And is this now the future? The Industrial Revolution, the new mystery? Then there's going to be the trains. It's like now, what would we have as a painting? AI coming towards us?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, that is absolutely the central message of this, which is the arrival of the industrial age.
Yeah.
And it's something that the Impressionists picked up on. I mean, you have so many of them painting the railways and the railway stations of Paris, for example. Railways transformed the history of art, there's no question about it. In the United States, it's the same. Suddenly people are commuting, suddenly people are living in suburbs, everything changes. Actually, even in the United States, railways allowed for the transportation of magazines like gardening magazines and art magazines, and so you start creating all these new artistic hubs. So lots obviously happens. So what you have here is a kind of natural world, which he's an absolute master of painting, and some of that's what he loved to focus on, and he's just fantastic. But right down the middle of it, a little bit left to right, you've got this steam train coming, hurtling towards you. And actually, when you start looking at the train, it's fascinating because there's no if you look carefully, you can actually see the passengers.
Yeah. Good luck to them.
And
it's like, can you imagine?
I mean, there's no carriage, roof, or windows. They're just sitting there in these open kind of benches, and they're obviously getting soaked. And it was also very, the steam might be these little white puffs, but I mean, it's soot.
Yes.
So they're absolutely hammered.
So this is third class travel at its best then.
I mean, this is a very early kind of steam train.
It's funny that you picked that steam train, though, isn't it?
That's probably where they were at in
maybe
being in the 19th century.
Yeah, 1844.
1844.
Painted this.
What I love is the front, the way he's painted the front of the train.
Yeah.
Now, if you look closely, if you really zoom in on it, it could almost be like a wine bottle.
Yes.
And really, it's like maybe there's this really smudged old label that you can't read, or it's a reflection. But, unless he's almost trying to me, he's almost showing you the insides of the engine.
Right.
The fire and the fury of it. But he's very clever, because if he did it all in black,
yeah,
it just wouldn't have the same impact. It would look like a black bottle hurtling through.
But the thing is, Phil, I realise from looking at this painting that I am a massive steam train lover.
Yeah.
And honestly, we're obviously used to we're used to trains. We're used to big trains going through intercity and all that. Back then, imagine see that.
To be on it would be like a roller coaster times 10.
I think it went 55 miles an hour.
Can you imagine? I mean, the fastest some people will have gone, and not everybody would have been on a horse.
Yeah.
And in fact, when you think about the world in which you lived, I'm reading a fantastic book at the moment by a guy called Gavin Plumley, and he talks about basically life in England, in the village where he lives some of the time in Herefordshire.
Oh yeah.
But he makes the point that most people's lives were limited to the 20 miles a day you could get on a horse. Right, yeah. More or less. And so most people actually didn't really travel more than 20 or 40 miles.
No.
It is one of the remarkable things of empires and societies like the Roman, or like the postal service in Britain, where they had these kind of series of horses. So you could travel quite quickly because you go from one fresh horse to the next fresh horse. But most individuals would just plod along in a horse and cart, or walking, or on a boat. So it's no accident that Turner's put down there on the Thames or the river. Let's assume it's the Thames. A little skiff, a little boat, just drifting along. That's the speed at which most people moved. All of a sudden, and it'd be like, as you say, it would be like us now. Obviously the transition to airplanes, and maybe if they do bring back some, which we really don't need, but some plane that can get you to Australia in 6 hours or something.
But I'm not sure that even if you think about that painting and the rowing boat and seeing that, is there something now that would make us absolutely overwhelmed? I don't know if there would be, because when you do go to the the Railway Museum in York, which is, I now realise, like I say, what a bit of a railway fan I've been to quite a few, and you stand there in front of those engines, it's just they're just incredible.
They are. I mean, actually, I've been on the 300 kilometre an hour, or whatever it is, trains in Japan.
Oh, I've never been on those.
But you're not really,
I can't imagine.
You're not really aware of it.
Oh, okay.
You're just going at such speed, there's no sense of the speed within the carriage.
It's fascinating. But the difference is
Imagine,
so vast.
And these guys,
yeah.
they're exposed to the elements.
Exactly.
Now, for those who haven't,
so
there's a really important detail here, which anyone that's looked at this painting will, I would imagine, have noticed before. But in front of the train, if you look carefully, between the tracks, scurrying as fast as its little feet will take it, is a hare.
Yes.
And that hare is...
yes.
That is generally assumed to be nature just trying to keep ahead.
Oh, okay.
And it's got no chance.
No.
And if it doesn't get out of the way, it's going to get absolutely flattened.
I think there's lots of
There's other details.
old wives' tales with hares. They can be there's lots of different meanings, isn't there? I think you can find all sorts of things about hares in your nan would have come out with some stuff.
Yeah.
New beginnings. Some of them are like when maybe tragedy. So it's like, is he trying to say, is this train a good thing or a bad thing?
I think he's embracing
Yes.
the industrial world. I think he's fascinated by it.
Yeah.
And for him, and the potential for him as an artist, and it's not just the train. I mean, Brunel is one of one of those greats.
I feel like we could do a podcast on Brunel. I don't know why I'm a little bit excited about.
But I mean,
Brunel.
his when you think,
I just like his name.
I mean, I was listening to the radio today, another report condemning the government on its mishandled HS2.
Oh right, yeah.
And it's like, they're saying he's not even going to Euston, and they're expecting private enterprise to pick that up, and it's just been a complete mess. Okay, look at these. I mean, Brunel's built this bridge. The train is there. It's running. It's transformative.
Yes.
But again, let's look at the details of this painting. Again, easy to miss. And actually, I've got to be honest, it was Michael Palin in the piece for our film that pointed this out. I'd actually not noticed. Right-hand side, you've got some people ploughing away there. And it's...
So is that Turner again saying about the past? Or that he's thinking, obviously, that somehow now that's not going to be going for much longer?
I think he's just saying look, he's got...
This is where we...
It looks to me like a couple of horses.
Yeah.
Again, he's making the point. That's how you normally got around. And there's a guy who looks to me like he's ploughing with a scythe. But so brilliant. Just a few little strokes. And you know exactly. He did
a lot of paintings with quite a lot of details, didn't he?
Oh, yeah.
So wonder why...
Well, because
why is this one suddenly... Or was it not suddenly, maybe? What?
1870, Franco-Prussian War. You get French artists coming, fleeing France because they're at war, coming to London, and some of them see Turner for the first time, and they suddenly realise that what they've been trying to do as impressionists.
Right.
Turner was there decades before, and he's not an impressionist really, but I mean, there is a sense of creating an atmosphere with paint, giving an impression of, it's not a realistic rendition of that train. It's an impressionistic rendition of that train,
which is what makes it so good, isn't it?
Which contains a truth in it.
Yeah.
And
he's just painted the atmosphere. Of this, yeah.
There are plenty of paintings where you can see the detail that he's capable of, buildings and Venice land. The landscape of Venice. I mean, he was a master painter, but he's trying to do something more here. He's trying to convey an emotion that is not conveyed by making it purely realistic. Look at this bunch in the middle of the painting, or just to the left of the middle. You've got that group of people who are standing on the shoreline.
Oh yes. yes, okay. I didn't notice them. Waving.
And they're all maybe having a picnic, maybe they're workers. I mean, you can see in there whatever you want to see.
I thought they were waving. I thought that was me.
I think they're waving.
I think I'd be waving.
I think they're waving.
I'm waving at a train.
Unless they got their fist up.
Oh, yes. No. No, I think they're waving.
And frankly, that's something I still do.
Wave at a train?
Who doesn't?
Oh, God. Isn't it the Water Boys?
What's that?
One of their lines. You please or wave at the wave or something because someone might wave back.
Yeah.
Well, you always live in hope.
But then,
I definitely would wave at a
But
train.
would they wave? Because they're
know.
probably also maybe horrified.
Yeah.
By the noise and the...
Well, yes, if that's the first time they've seen one, maybe. And then the thought of even getting on one.
I mean, is that the first time? I mean, the bridge has been...
Oh, it's been there for ages, so no.
I don't know.
No, it can't be.
1840, we'd have to do a bit of... If it's
we'd have
painted in
to go right into it.
1844...
No, there's yeah. It just fascinates me, this painting, because it's just, if you were walking past it at the National Gallery, which is why, as you know, when I said on the Christmas special, the National Gallery is so overwhelming that I can't imagine that you could possibly, you almost have to either pick an artist or you have to pick 4 paintings because there's so many stories, so many details that you just miss if you just wander through. And this painting especially there's so many little mysteries in there. What is Turner trying to say? Is he trying to say, look, this is the future now? I'm quite looking forward to it. Is he the hare running ahead? It's just so much. It's just
so 1844. He's born in 1775, right?
Yeah.
So he's 25.
He died.
He's 69.
69. Yeah, and he died
towards the end of his life.
1851. He died.
I mean, he's a complicated man. Had a complicated life, complicated personal life.
Right.
Hugely prolific.
Yeah.
I mean, I think one needs to go to the Tate really to see a lot of his works as opposed to the National. I just called up a picture of the Maidenhead Railway Bridge. There it is.
Okay.
And it was built in 1839. So it'd only been built 5 years earlier.
Yeah. So they all must have seen those trains.
Carries the Great Western Main Line over the River Thames near Maidenhead. Single structure of 2 tall, wide red brick arches buttressed by 2 overland smaller arches. It was a single... The bridge carried 2 7-foot broad gauge railway tracks. In due course, traffic to and from London increased enormously, and mixed gauge tracks were provided between London and Bristol during 1861.
There we are.
Yeah. And, you know, if you look at the pictures, compared to Turner, I mean, look at that picture. It's pretty dull, really, isn't it?
It's just a photo, yeah.
It's just a dull bridge in that photograph. Whereas, you know, the energy that
exactly.
That
it's
Turner gives it.
Much better way of looking at it. And didn't he get voted 19 something Britain's favourite painter?
Did he?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not surprised.
I thought we'd had this conversation before, but yeah, he got voted Britain's favourite painter. I've got it on my notes. We've got so many colours, I can't see it. I'm going to have to sort my life out.
I know that...
I think it's because I get overwhelmed with... I love the train thing. And I realise how much I love the trains.
I know that Fighting Temeraire...
Oh, yes.
Was, at one point,
Britain's favourite painting.
Yeah,
1994. I've got written down. Became Britain's greatest painter. But that is the internet, and sometimes you can always be a little bit... But then he donated all of his... paintings to the museums after he died as well, so people were able to see them probably a lot more.
Well, he donated them and wanted to kind of his own gallery.
Oh, right.
And in the end, that didn't happen at the National, but it did happen at the Tate.
So it's at the Tate Britain.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is obviously well worth a visit any time.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to think if I have a British artist I like more than Turner. I don't think I do, really.
I think it's really hard though to have a.
I like Turner's. I like the energy of Turner. Oh, I mean, people sometimes talk about Constable in the same breath as Turner because they are contemporaries and rivals, really. I think that the energy of Turner is just. I mean, again, if we just
a little bit more, you think?
It's just, I'm always just amazed by the skill involved in this kind of painting. Imagine it starts as a blank canvas, and number one, it's totally credible, even though it's as we said, impressionistic. But you don't question the bridge, you don't question the viaduct or the people on the water or the people.
No.
But nor do you really question the distance and the clouds, and then those shafts of rain coming onto the bridge.
No, the atmosphere is.
If we tried that, it would just be one big smudge.
Be a disaster. But also, I always love is when he says, "Okay, I've finished now."
Well,
it always fascinates me. It's like that middle bit, especially. It's also, how do you?
I've always wondered that. In fact, funnily enough, it's funny you should say that because when we made the film with Michael Palin, one of the questions that I asked the presenter Tim to ask Michael is, when do you consider a work to be finished?
Right.
So in his case, I was thinking more of the films.
Yes.
So, Monty Python, The Holy Grail, or Life of Brian, or The Meaning of Life. When is it finished? He said, it's really difficult. And normally you work on something past the point that you should have stopped.
Oh, right, yeah.
And actually you slightly diminish it by going on too far and continuing to fiddle, was his response. At what point does Turner look at this painting and go, that's it?
Done it. Well, he may actually do that then. He may overdo it. He might think to himself, I've gone too far in that middle bit.
I mean...
But let me see if I can get away with it.
I can't. I mean, there's no way...
I love that middle bit.
There's no way we can judge. There's no way we can say, he's done too much.
Well, even if I could judge, I'm not going to.
No.
I was sticking with your bottle of wine theory there.
I know, all I can see is a black bottle. But look at these. I mean, between the two, the point at which the viaduct meets, or it seems to be heading towards the railway bridge.
Yeah.
A kind of bunch of trees.
Which I hadn't even noticed until you said.
Just look at them really carefully.
I hadn't even noticed the little people, and I didn't realise that was even the riverbank.
But those trees are totally credible, and they've got slightly different light on them, and you can almost see the shade at the bottom of the...
There's way more detail than you even remotely think.
It's absolutely brilliant. The slight darkness under the viaduct's arches, where the light's not quite penetrating.
Yeah. When you get to that, well...
what would be interesting would be to go to this... I mean, it probably doesn't exist quite like this, and maybe he sketched it and then changed it back in his studio in London.
Yeah.
His dad was his dad was alive, was his agent, which is kind of interesting, and kind of looked after him. And anyway, as I said, his personal life's very interesting. But it'd be interesting for you and I one day to go to this point and see. I'm intrigued to know if there are hills
still there
like that in the background.
Okay, well, that's it then, Phil. A flask of coffee, custard cream. Cause
we'll go by train, obviously.
Go by train.
Well, if it's running.
Yeah, don't even go there.
The last train I got back from London was an absolute... It was disgusting.
Well, last time I went on a train...
2 hours late.
Oh, no, we got thrown out of Gatwick. Not useful.
See, this lot, they didn't know how lucky they were.
Exactly.
I bet they arrived on time.
Yeah.
I
would have done anything to have no roof when they threw us out of Gatwick.
They arrive on time.
Exactly.
I mean, all right. You might have been covered in soot and rain.
And but I would have been home.
Bits of squashed hair that are thrown up in your face.
My poor husband had to come and pick me up, £5 just to drop off. It's like pick up. Yeah. So...
Well, we thought we were going to have to get a taxi from Gatwick, which would have been, 80 quid?
Exactly.
Luckily, Anyway.
So we're embracing how the trains have come
Well, listen, everybody,
it's
a beautiful, beautiful painting. Please go both to the National Gallery to see it and to the cinema to see My National Gallery London, or visit 7th-art.com to see the film. and any of the previous 35 exhibition on-screen films.
Amazing.
Feel free to stay in touch. Right, see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Painting of the Week podcast. For more information, please visit our website at seventh-art.com or contact us by emailing info@seventh-art.com. See you next time.